So this one is about the way to end racism, sexism, the whole 9 yards. 100%, yeah, it would end it completely. It might come back around again because, it's kind of like I was looking at an article that said, why is it that there have been so many different types of crab-like creatures? Meaning that everything that looks like a crab is not related to each other. Apparently, organisms have evolved into crabs on their own several times. In the same way, for example, that there are many different creatures that fly. There's a mammal that flies, that's a bat, and they are one of the most prolific species of mammals in the world. There are insects that fly, for example, mosquitoes, butterflies, whatever. And additionally, there are dinosaurs that fly, i.e. birds. So it might come back, racism, sexism, whatever. This method that I'm saying, it may just be a temporary fix. Maybe it might last 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows. Anyway, a long time ago, I used to want to fall asleep to something intelligent. So I would go to a YouTube channel, Stanford's YouTube channel. I should go back there. They have some pretty good stuff. And there is a really smart professor, teaches a course there. And his course is on genetics, it's on behavioral science. It's a really, really cool course. There's a guy from MASH who interviewed this guy, and Joe Rogan also interviewed this guy. I don't remember the guy's name. It feels like it's Leonard something, but I'm probably wrong. Anyway, the guy also studied baboons for a long time. He would go to Africa and do tests with his wife, blood tests, blood work, observation on baboons, this baboon troop in, I can't remember which country, but he has a lot of nice stories about his time there. And I remember one where he was talking about there was somebody who was crazy and they wanted him, I think, to drive the car to take this crazy person away from the village or whatever. Anyway, the long story short, the punchline of that joke and that story is the person was hearing the wrong voices. Because he was like, you have like leaders, shaman and whatever, and they hear voices just like this crazy person, then what's wrong with this person? And the people were like, come on, man, duh, they're hearing the wrong voices. Anyway, the story is about this baboon troop, because we're primates. Baboons, I think, are primates too, so the story is relevant. Now, amongst baboons, unfortunately, the more power that you have, it means that the more people that you have to hurt, or you have access to hurting, and you may do that. That's how you create this hierarchy. I'm better than you, and I am able to take out my emotional frustrations on you, and people above me do the same. But everything goes in one direction, otherwise I'll beat you up. So anyway, that was how this baboon troop was like. And the guy said that one day everything changed. Maybe it took more than one day, but there was a huge turn one day. And another thing that he was saying was that if you are a baboon, apparently the best place to be in the hierarchy is not necessarily the guy who's on top or somebody who's on top, like one of the courtiers or whatever. The whole idea is that if you have people around you that love you and console you and groom you and all these other things, that's more important than your rank in the troop. Because when the king dies, the leader of the troop dies, the resulting chaos seems to be more stressful on the higher up baboons, because there's a whole rejiggering as to say, where are you in this hierarchy? If you're in the middle, probably nothing is going to change for you, so you're probably not going to get as much stressed. But if you're higher up, You don't know. Maybe you might be the king. Maybe your brother might be the king. Maybe your arch enemy might be the king. So it's really stressful. Anyway, one day everything changed, and this baboon troop has its utopia for a short time. Unfortunately, as far as he says, the troop is no more. They disappeared. It's sad, yes. Anyway, what was it that happened? Well, there was a trash dump where humans would dump their food, I presume, because if it's not food, then why are the baboons going there? Well, the baboons would go there, and they would, I presume, scour the place for food that was edible, and this was a really favorite thing for them to do. But you had to be of a certain rank in order to go to the dump. If you weren't allowed to. It's like when lions take down a water buffalo or whatever else. If you don't have a high enough rank, you probably should stay back because you might get hurt. So that's what happened at the dump. Now the problem, or the shining light, whichever point of view you choose to take it as, the shining light, not for the people that died, and that's what happened. These high-ranking baboons, they got infected with tuberculosis, TB, and many of them died, I presume. But as a result of them dying, it meant that the whole culture of the troop changed. It means that the people who had the most experience making other people's lives bad, they were gone. And the whole dynamic of the troop changed. There was no more in the remaining troop of people who were mean to each other. The whole dynamic of the troop changed, and there was more grooming and loving and consoling and the whole nine. And yeah, the troop changed. Now, you didn't ask this, but you might have asked this, and you might say, well, what happens if some other baboons from another troop comes over? They'll just flip the script and take over and run roughshod over these wimps because they're weak. It's just the weak ones that are left. And the guy said, well, yeah, that did happen when new baboons came over from other troops. They would run roughshod, but after a couple of weeks, they would adapt to the dynamic, the culture of the new troop. And that carried over. I don't know how long they lasted, but basically they became more like the pygmy chimps that just relieve their stress sexually, and less like the other chimps that fight with opposing chimp bands and try to single out individuals and kill them. Or if you heard of the chimpanzee that basically bit off all the extremities of this lady, unfortunately, or if you heard of other attacks that chimpanzees have had on people. Basically, chimpanzees are not friendly like that. I think Michael Jackson's chimpanzee, once it got past baby into adolescence and manhood, he couldn't be petting it anymore. But anyway, that's how the whole culture of the troop changed. So you say, but what does this have to do with human beings? I mean, so one day all the mean people could die? Well, it could be that if we reach the point where it's just AIs that are taking care of children, right, primarily, and it's no longer human beings, or if adults were to die, the babies would still survive and there would be a new generation. Well, yeah, if we get to that point where that's possible, and unfortunately we end up with some kind of virus that just kills adults alone, kind of like how coronavirus doesn't really affect children that much, and then all of the stuff that kids absorb, because people like to say that kids don't know anything about racism and sexism and homophobia and all of that stuff, right? Well, if there are no adults to pass that culture on, maybe it might disappear. Or maybe it might be, what is the name of that story? Lord of the Flies. Maybe those kids were too old. Lord of the Flies, a story about kids. I mean, this is just an idea that somebody came up with. Basically, a bunch of kids were stranded on an island, and they decided to turn some kids into minorities and hunt them down and kill them and do all sorts of bad things to them. And at one point, yeah, I guess they did kill several kids, other kids, like, they were the kids, and then, you're the outcast. Or it could be like Children of the Corn kind of thing, where I guess something, again, kills the adults, and then when kids reach a certain point, they have to go kill themselves or something like that. I don't know. But maybe we could start from babies. Maybe one day something just kills everybody above 5. And then the AIs take over and raise the kids. And then there's no racism, sexism, homophobia, prejudice, nothing, period. And if that's going to happen, it's probably going to take a couple of thousand years before it does. So, yeah. It's a long shot in terms of likelihood. But, it's possible.